fainting drama that played out not too long ago on the floor of the House of Representatives involving an interim chief executive officer of the Niger Delta Development Commission may have become a distant memory to many. What remains indelible, however, is the ongoing politics surrounding the clarion call for the inauguration of a board for the special purpose vehicle, which was supposedly created to open up avenues for bringing development closer to the people of the oil-rich Niger Delta. A perceived lack of financial probity and accountability in its operations has led experts and analysts alike to continue to refer to the agency as a cesspool of corruption. The failure, unwillingness on the part of President Muhammadu Buhari to honor his words and back an internal audit of the agency is being blamed for that state of affairs. To explore that a little further, we are now being joined by Honorable Samson Osagie, a former member of the House of Representatives and Minority Whip of the Green Chamber of the National Assembly between 2007 and 2015. Good morning, Honorable Osagie. Good to have you on the program.
Good morning. It's a pleasure having me here.
All right, thank you very much. So let's talk, further about the NDDC. Where are we, and what's your understanding of the position of the President Muhammadu Buhari, who has lately said that the report of the forensic audit carried out for NDDC is being implemented in phases, even though we still do not have a new management or a substantive board for the NDDC. What are your thoughts regarding this position by the President?
Thank you very much. Let me start on the note that Mr. President, with the greatest respect, is being misled by the kind of advice he is receiving with respect to NDDC at the moment. I believe that if he have the privilege of knowing the true state of affairs, particularly regarding the legal position with respect to NDDC, he would act otherwise. First, let me give you a little background to this whole saga. In his first tenure, Mr. President appointed the Udoma Egba-led management team, governing board for the NDDC, apparently to complete the tenure of Senator Bassi, who was chairman before Senator Udoma Egba was appointed. And then, in the build-up to the 2019 election, the Udoma Egba-led team, many of them resigned to contest elections. And there was a period of interregnum between the elections of 2019 and until around October 2019, when the president decided to do the right thing by appointing a substantive governing board, which he sent to the Senate for confirmation. The Senate did confirm those names, men of proven integrity in line with Section 22A of the NDDC Act, and they were cleared, and of course, returns were made to the president for them to take over the management of the NDDC. Shortly after that, Mr. President constituted his cabinet and appointed a prominent son of the Niger Delta to head the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, as at which time the NDDC had come under the ministry as a supervisory ministry for the Niger Delta Affairs. Now, a coup now was plotted in order to ensure that the governing board that was already appointed and screened and returns made to the president do not take over the running of the affairs of that agency. I call it a coup because it was the appointment of an interim management team is unknown to any law in Nigeria. The Constitution is the fundamental law which gives powers to the president to carry out his executive functions and the legislature to carry out its legislative functions. The NDDC Act that was made in the year 2000 is one legislation that was made by the National Assembly by way of a veto. And then they plotted the coup, suspended the operation of the NDDC Act with respect to the management of the NDDC. And then came an interim body, from there to a sole administrator. Now, the situation we are with the NDDC as of today is a travesty. It is an abnormality, and it is calculated to derail the purpose for which the agency is set up. And it does get the people of the Niger Delta, and of course, the entire 9 states whose interests are meant to be protected by way of development, to the NDDC. Now, with respect to the forensic audit which the president ordered, I want to say that the NDDC Act itself did state that the president shall have power to monitor, supervise, give directions to the NDDC. But the law did not say the president have power to suspend the NDDC Act and then carry out other things outside the purview of the NDDC. And that is why I say with the greatest respect that the president is being misadvised, he is being misinformed, he is being misled into all these anomalies and blatant disregard for the law setting up the agency. And what is more, this anomaly is being perpetuated 3 years down the line, and it is not fair. Forensic audit has been complied with, has been carried out. There is no problem with that, but it could have also been done where a management body or a governing body is in place. After all, the NDDC Act itself consists of internal mechanisms to regulate the affairs. There is a provision for the setting up of advisory body, which is to be made up of the governors of the region or governors of the 9 states. All these are supposed to serve as checks and balances to the operation of the NDDC. There is a provision for the appointment of monitoring committee by the NDDC. It is also intended to ensure that in the performance of its responsibility, the NDDC governing board will have to be checked and balanced in their activities, with line with the law. And of course, there's the National Assembly, who has responsibility to carry oversight. So all this whole matter about forensic audit now resulting in the delay of the constitution of the board and inauguration of a board that have been duly appointed in accordance with the law are all politics. And regrettably, it is prominent sons of the Niger Delta who have been charged with responsibility to manage the Niger Delta Affairs Ministry that have, come this far to put a nail on the neck of the people of the Niger Delta. It's most unfortunate. And I believe that the president should receive the right advice and constitute the board. You cannot continue in this illegality, because the situation we are now is that you cannot cure one particular problem of corruption in the NDDC by continuing in illegality. As we speak today, the NDDC is being operated outside the purview of the law setting it up. And whatever actions those who are running it, either as interim management committee or as sole administrator, whatever action they are taking, in the eye of the law, their actions are null and void and they are illegal. And in the future, they may be called to account for it. So I just say that while Mr. President cannot be blamed because he has a whole lot of things, I believe he's not receiving the right advice. And I pray that he do get the right advice at the right time and get a governing board. There is nothing that suggests that Mr. President can exercise his powers of supervision, direction of NDDC by suspending the law which set up the NDDC.
All right, Mr. Osagie, again, thanks again for being with us this morning. Now, of course, you've spoken and given us a very good backdrop to the existing picture. But for the benefit of the public, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to stay on that question a little bit more. Could you talk us through the merits of some of the agitation and kickback against the sole administratorship for the commission? What are the implications of the existing situation? Could you share some examples of some of the decisions that have been made under this administration, under the existing picture as we have it?
Thank you very much. Like I said, a sole administrator is not within the contemplation of the NDDC Act. Section 2, Section 4, up to Section 12 of the NDDC Act made it clear how the NDDC should be run. Sole administratorship or interim management committee is not one of them. So it is an aberration and clearly against the law. And I don't know how long we can continue to operate outside the purview of a law in this country when we are running a constitutional democracy. It is an antithesis and an anathema to the rule of law that should govern a democratic society. And that is why the people of the Niger Delta and various segments of it are crying almost every day and agitating that what is going on is an attempt to take by the left hand what has been given to us by the right hand. It is not done anywhere. The Northeast Development Commission is up and running. We know it is a new agency, but it's created by the same law made by the National Assembly. So if there are corruption charges, which I agree, because the NDDC has become a cesspool of corruption by those who have run it in the past. Now, correcting it will not be by an illegal means. You cannot bring correction by an illegal means. It's like suspending the government of the country and a military taking over. We know military regimes are an aberration. That is exactly what is happening. And the implication of what is happening is this. One state has continued to dominate the affairs of NDDC through the interim management committee up to the point of sole administratorship. And the law does not expect that NDDC will be run at any point in time without the 9 states being represented in the day-to-day affairs of that agency. There are supposed to be 9 states whose interests are supposed to be guaranteed in terms of development. In the past 3 years, almost a whole tenure, all the other states, apart from probably 1 or 2, have been left in the limbo without they having a representative in the NDDC board, in the NDDC management.
Which states are you referring
to? That is not done anywhere.
Which states
I expect
specifically are you referring to? Which state are you referring to that is dominating
NDDC? For example, you recall that His Excellency Nsima Ekere was the managing director up to late 2018 when he resigned to contest for the governorship of Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
Now, when he resigned, there was a period of interregnum. Thereafter, around October, an interim management committee was set up, made up of someone from Rivers, someone from Delta, the current sole administrator from Akwa Ibom. After a short while, that interim management committee was dissolved, and the current sole administrator took over the sole administratorship. So in a way, Akwa Ibom has been dominating the administration of NDDC, for the past 3 years. And that is not fair. Where are the rest states? We can't be onlookers. We are stakeholders in the affairs of the NDDC. One state cannot continue to remain the decision maker for the 9 states. In the eye of the law, we are equal in the affairs of NDDC. This is not only unfair, it is illegal, it is unlawful, it is against the spirit and letters of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The point I try to make is that there is a clear attempt to deny the other states who are stakeholders in the NDDC their input in the administration of the NDDC, and of course the benefits that should accrue to them. These are some of the very grievous implications for it.
All right, Honorable Osagie, well, I mean, I like your clarification on that, but then I'm wondering how much of trust will you have in what the current Minister of the Niger Delta, Mr. Omana, is saying about the fact that he will reform and he will stay true to the prescriptions from that forensic audit. I'm aware that, as you very much know, that previously under Godswill Akpabio, there have been a lot of issues, an Akwa Ibom person, that, like you said. Is this about the interference from the Ministry of Niger Delta trying to take ownership of or take total control of the NDDC rather than have a proper management and a board report directly to the presidency? Is it about the pressure from the ministry, or is it, or do you think that the personality of the current minister can at least turn things around so that it doesn't look like it's only one state that is dominating, as you alleged?
Well, incidentally, like you have said, the previous minister and the current minister, they are both from Akwa Ibom State. The sole administrator of NDDC is from Akwa Ibom State. So you can now understand what I'm saying. But I just hope and pray that the current minister will do something differently. Because if what we are hearing is true, then it means we are not out of the woods. What we are hearing is that there is also an attempt to convert the sole administratorship into another interim government. And that will be disastrous. And I'm sure the people of the Niger Delta will not accept that. I just hope and pray he does things differently. Because he has a duty to do things right in accordance with the law. And if you ask me why I do not oppose any audit being carried out in order to straighten out things, remove area of inefficiency, area of corruption from the running of the NDDC, I dare say that doing that, will not affect the running of the place in accordance with the law. You could carry out a forensic audit where the management, where the governing board set up according to the law is in place. After all, the Nigerian Port Authority was being investigated. The chairman, the managing director suspended, and an acting managing director put in place. Investigation was carried out. The board was not disbanded. It's still functioning. So my point is that this current minister must stick to the law setting up the NDDC. They must not continue to use the forensic audit as a ploy or a subterfuge to use the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs to put his neck, to put his knee on the neck of the NDDC. And as you can see, the workers are already protesting. The people of the Niger Delta are already protesting. For crying out loud, this is a constitutional democracy founded on the principles of majority rule and the interest of the people. So it should not be the interest of those running the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs. Because the truth must be told. If we carried out a forensic audit in order to ensure that we unearth the monumental corruption that have besetted the NDDC, I must confirm to you that in the last 3 years, the monumental sleaze within the NDDC, particularly in the areas of payment of contractors, is mind-boggling. And I'm sure in the future, some investigations will be carried out, and you will not know that those who are saying they are cleaning up the place were worse than those they were investigating. It shouldn't be so. We should run the agency in accordance with the law, hold the people accountable. So I just pray, why I cannot speak for his personality as to what he wants to do. I pray that he chooses to do things differently from his predecessor. He should not attempt by any means to continue to use NDDC or use the forensic audit as a ploy to extend the illegal administration of the NDDC. It will be very disastrous, not just for his image, but it will be anti-democratic and anti-developmental to the people of the Niger Delta.
Right. Mr. Osagie, talking about doing things differently. Now, as we know, President Buhari has also highlighted the approach that the Strategic Implementation Work Plan and the Pan-Niger Delta Forum's 16-point agenda will be applied more effectively to provide strategic framework for development initiatives in the Niger Delta. What is your take on this approach, and how effective would you expect it to be?
Yes, the president is right, because I told you the NDDC Act made it clear that the NDDC shall be under the direction, control, and of course, supervision of the presidency. Of course, which power he has delegated to the ministry. But the NDDC Act does not contemplate that should be done outside the purview of the NDDC Act. The management team constituted in accordance with the law, which has already been done in accordance with the law, can be put in place to implement those strategic plans. You can't be implementing strategic plans with an illegal management structure. That is my position. And that is the position of many people in the Niger Delta. Beautiful plans, beautiful agenda for the Niger Delta. You must do it within the purview of the law. That is my point. So Mr. President is being misled into thinking that it doesn't matter whoever implements it, and you are throwing the law overboard. I expect, for instance, that the chief law officer of the country should draw the president's attention to this fact. The governing board can implement the strategic plan of the government, in the Niger Delta, but you cannot do so with an illegal administrative structure not recognized by law. After all, what is the basis of establishing the NDDC by an act of parliament? It's a gross violation of the Act of Parliament. And you know what that means. We can't continue in illegality because we want to clean up the place. The purpose of the law is to ensure that there is orderliness, that there is effectiveness, accountability, and transparency. And then you can hold people accountable to the oath that they have taken. So I salute Mr. President for the strategic plan, except that that strategic plan ought to be implemented through a legally constituted governing team, which he has already appointed and the Senate has already skinned. That's all.
Exactly. That's my point, Honorable. Where does the National Assembly come in now? Haven't screened the governing board members, but then still waiting for the president to inaugurate them. Is there any intervention that could come from the National Assembly, or will it be a waiting game until the president is persuaded to inaugurate them?
You have answered the question yourself. The National Assembly was the one that passed that act. The president did not assent to that act in the year 2000. The NDDC Act was one of the acts that the National Assembly had to override the president's veto. So in a way, the NDDC is actually a product of the National Assembly, you know, in response to the hue and cry for development for the region. I expect the National Assembly to rise up to the occasion at this point in exercise of its powers of oversight to insist on nothing less but an inauguration of the governing board to take over the responsibility and management of the NDDC in accordance with the law that it has passed. The National Assembly has a great role to play. And I believe that outside the diplomatic engagement, outside the legislative diplomatic engagement, it should go beyond that by ensuring that it exercises its oversight function, you know, to bring the Ministry of Niger Delta into its control with respect to this matter and convince the president to do the right thing in accordance with the law. The president has done the right thing. He has appointed people, sent them to the Senate, and they have been screened. So I believe that the only clog in the wheel of progress in this whole matter is the ministry to whom power has been delegated to supervise. So I believe the National Assembly has a role to play. They should play that role. And I believe that if they do play that role properly, the president will be in a better position to appreciate the enormity of the damage that has been done running the NDDC against the law that set it up.
All right, Honorable Osagie, just for the last 2 minutes that we have with you, in the event that the president does the needful, what will be your charge to a truly constituted NDDC management board? What should be people's expectations and what should they focus on when that time comes?
My charge first and foremost is that against the background of the corruption that have besetted the NDDC, the new board must live like Caesar's wives lives above board to operate and run the place very transparently and must be accountable to the people of the Niger Delta and, of course, the various states that they represent. First and foremost, they must ensure that those contracts and projects that have been awarded for which contractors have either taken money and run away, they must be completed for the benefit of the people for whom they are meant. Two, they must ensure that the resources and finances of the Niger Delta are well spent for the people of the Niger Delta and the projects for which they are meant to be used for. And secondly, they must remain accountable to the people of the Niger Delta in such a way that the benefits of setting up the Niger Delta Development Commission are achieved. If they do anything less and try to go the old ways of those who have run it before, then we cannot blame anybody but ourselves as Niger Deltans who have been given the mandate to develop ourselves, and we have refused to do so. So I believe that the new board, against the background of what has happened, must do things differently, and they must try and leave their names in the sands of time so that posterity will judge them aright. They have no option. The development needs of the Niger Delta are quite legion. The resources must be properly applied to ensure that the people of the region feels the impact in no small measure, so that the need for which that agency was created can be fully met. I believe that all the people, they are Niger Deltans, except about 3 people. and then they'll be able to do what is right.
All right.
Thank you so
Honorable
much
Samson Osagie, thank you
me.
so much for joining us this morning. Have a good one.